All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, I am going to be showing you my entire Guy Gavriel Kay book collection. The reason I wanted to show you this collection here, folks, is because if you want to start a great collection of fantasy books by one author, but you don't want to be just overwhelmed by having to buy like 30 or 40 books. You know, like if you want to start reading Robert Jordan, you're going to be investing in a lot of books. If you want to start reading Brandon Sanderson, Jim Butcher, Tad Williams, there's so many books you got to buy to get their whole collection. One of the things that's great about Guy Gavriel Kay is he's got just a handful of books. They're all standalone novels, and you can just get yourself a really good collection of one author's complete works. And you know, if you start collecting Stephen King right now, folks, he's written 80 books. If you start collecting Louis L'Amour, we're talking 190 books. You start collecting Dean Koontz, we're talking 90 books. But Guy Gavriel Kay is one of the best writers on the history of the planet. And let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 books. 11 of them standalone novels. There's only one trilogy here. Actually, there's a couple series. We'll get into that. What we're going to do is we're going to go through these books in order of publication, in the order that I purchased them from when I was a young guy until now, and I will talk about them. So let's get right to it. I first discovered Guy Gavriel Kay when his first ever novel, The Summer Tree, came out, book 1 of the Fëanor Tapestry. You can check my review of this book out on my channel. Then book number 2 came out, which was the Wandering Fire. And look at these great paintings, The Wandering Fire, and then book 3, The Darkest Road. Now let's just take a look at, these are the copies that I bought when I was in high school or something. Great covers by Mel Odom. I love these covers. A great trilogy. Go ahead and Google my name and Guy Gavriel Kay, and my review of this trilogy will come up. Not only do I have these paperback copies, these are the original paperbacks I bought when I was younger. I also bought first edition hardcover copies of the very same trilogy because I really enjoyed the trilogy. So we've got a nice set of both the paperbacks and the hardcovers here. You know, on my channel, we don't just talk about buying books. We talk about buying all the books. Not only do I have these in multiple versions, paperback and hardcover, I also have the audible.com version. I do not collect ebooks, though. I have a thing against ebooks. So if you ask me if I have a Kindle or a Nook, no. Do have an Audible account. Let's go. The second ever book that I read. No, those were the first 3. That was the trilogy. And then we got Guy Gavriel Kay's classic literary fantasy novel, Tagana. And this is probably the most famous of his works. Probably the most recognizable of his works. It's something that stands up there with classic science fiction like Dune and Lord of the Rings. This one will always be, when people mention the top 10 fantasy novels of all time, even 200 or 300 years from now, this will be there. And anybody that's read it will understand, and anybody that's been following fantasy novels for any length of time knows that I'm correct about that. Again, I've been collecting Guy Gavriel Kay books since the beginning, since he first started publishing a long time ago. And so every time a new one would come out, I would get it and read it, and I'm going to tell you right now, this one is my favorite. Of all the Guy Gavriel Kay books, The Lions of Al Raman is my favorite. It is fucking awesome. Got the hardcover here, another great Mel Odom cover. Look at that. This is about it's kind of about Spain, France, the Pyrenees area of, every book that Guy Gavriel Kay writes. Let me just stop right now and give a little history on these books. Though they are all standalones, with the exception of a couple trilogies, they all sort of take place in this shared world, which is sort of an alternate history Europe. And like Tagana takes place in sort of an alternate history sort of Italy. This one takes place in sort of an alternate history French, southern France, northern Spain, Pyrenees mountains landscape. And then we get the Song of Arbonne. Song of Arbonne. Now, if you want to see my detailed review of this book, The Lions of Al Raman, it's on my channel. Just search for it. Also, Tagana. I've done a review of it. I've done a review of the Fionavar tapestry, and I just barely did a review of the Song of Arbonne. You can find it also. This one, again, I bought this when it came out. This is a first edition hardcover. Great cover by Cannuccio Craft, one of our most excellent fantasy and science fiction illustrators of the 80s and 90s. Great looking piece. Great looking book here. This one takes place in also southern France. And then we've got another trilogy, beginning with, this is the book 1 of the Sarantine Mosaic, Sailing to Sarantium. This is about people that build mosaics and stained glass windows and construct cathedrals. Book 1, Sailing to Sarantium. Book 2, Lord of Emperors. Again, nicely done. And then book 3, which is loosely tied to these. So I can't really call this a trilogy. It's more of a duology with a third book sort of thrown on top of it. He wrote these in the mid-90s. This one just came out about 3 or 4 years ago. So this is the third book loosely tied to these. And this one is called A Brightness Long Ago. But they all three are set in the same kind of area with characters that, are in the story. Yeah. Isabelle. I like this book. Look at that. That's a great cover, too. Isabelle. This one we will be reading and reviewing soon. This is kind of like a, this is really kind of more of a Da Vinci Code-esque fantasy book set in a more modern time period than, but also, even though it's set in a more modern time period, it still ties in with all these other books. It's called Isabelle. I like this quite a bit. And if I'm mispronouncing that, let me know. I don't know if you can see the... Anyway. But isn't that cover just blow you away? Then we've got his Viking book. Yeah. Hey, alternate history Europe has to have a book about Vikings. This is Last Light of the Sun. Another great first edition hardcover I have. I wish I had some of these signs. I do show off my signed book collection. If I ever meet an author, I always have them sign my books. I've never met Guy Gavriel Kay, so none of them are signed, but certainly wish I did. And then we have Under Heaven. This one also takes place in the same alternate history world, but in the far east. This book reminded me a lot of that Asian movie called Hero that came out about 20 years ago. River of Stars, another great book that takes place in the Far East. Look at that cover too. Doesn't that just sparkle and glow? And then his latest book, which just came out this year or last year, Children of Earth and Sky. Another great cover by the publisher. So that's not a lot of books. I've got first editions. My book collection includes first editions of every Guy Gavriel Kay novel. There's only 14 of them here. And if you want to get started collecting fantasy and you want to build a collection of one entire author's entire collection of works, I would suggest let's start with Guy Gavriel Kay, because you're going to get you get two trilogies. Most everything else is standalone. And, you can I would say start with either the Lions of Al-Rassan or Tagana, or perhaps his Viking book. Those are probably the three most accessible for people that have not read Guy Gavriel Kay. And trust me, once you read one, you're going to be hooked, and you're going to want to get the rest of them. You just will. You just will. And so that's why I had wanted to show you this collection, just because it is super dope. And that is my look at Guy Gavriel Kay.